us to go live. 3, 2, 1. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Inside Movies Galore. I'm your host, David Streggy. And here in the room with me, I have director Asif Akbar. Am I saying that correctly?
Asif, yes.
Asif.
Asif
Okay. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in the independent film industry?
Well, I've been doing this for a long time, even though, I'm young. I started young, but I still feel like I'm just getting started. Ever since I can remember, back when I was 2, 3 years old, I've always been fascinated with movies, just like everyone else, I'm sure. And I was always curious to how movies were made and who were all behind, in making them. And so as I grew older and I matured and I, started to learn more and more about how they come together. And so I started acting as a child actor, then grew into making my own content, and that naturally came with producing and then directing, writing. And then also eventually I started learning more about the technical side of it all with editing and running the cameras and just lighting and all aspects of putting a film together. And then in my teenage years, I had a radio and television program that I was part of in my high school years, from junior and senior years. I had a lot of hands-on training in making my own content that started airing on TV. And then from there, I was raised in Cleveland, Ohio. And after graduating high school, I moved to California, Los Angeles, to attend film school there. And so I went through a bachelor's degree program and graduated with a degree in film and television productions.
Okay.
But along with going to film school, I started working, in networking and making professional content in films and all kinds of media content. And that just kept me busy and working and making more contacts to get bigger and better positions. And I started working in every type of position in the industry just to get jobs and pay bills and grow and learn every aspect of it, from development to production to post production to even marketing, distribution, sales. There's so much more to it in the business than we think. We just want to be directors or filmmakers or actors, but a lot of it goes hand in hand. And the more the more tools you have to be able to do your job better in this business, I believe.
Okay. And what is the first film project that you directed that you feel was like the first time that you actually thought you actually had something?
Well,
Before I go into some of my questions, I figured I'd ask you. Uh,
um, it would be a film that only a very limited amount of people watched. It was actually a film that I had completed, my first film that was from beginning to end with act one and two structure, that I was able to complete, was at age 11. And it was a fun little film called The Psychotic Killer that I did with my friends back in elementary school. And then we finished right before we went into junior high. And then I remember we had a premiere for all the teachers and some of the students in junior high. And so that was a big thing. At that moment, I realized that I can, and not just that I can. It took me about 7 months and learned a lot. I was 11 years old, and my friends and I were just having fun. But
mhm.
to be able to see something that we put together and created and brought to the screen for others to watch and enjoy and critique and just experience, that right there proved to me that I can make a movie.
Okay.
And at that time, it was a long time ago, and it was a 50-minute long movie, between a short and a feature. And a lot of people around me at that time, my friends and family, then started taking my dreams and aspirations of me wanting to be a filmmaker. They started to take that more seriously and supporting me. So that film at that time got me to be taken more seriously amongst my peers, and my family, even at that age, people knew that, okay, if I was that committed at that age to accomplishing something where I actually finished the movie
Hmm.
and had something tangible in hand, that showed people that I really wanted to do this. And that's what I learned along the way in my journey. I've seen a lot of failures and successes, and I've witnessed and experienced of my own success and failures. And along the way, you really learn if you truly are passionate or not about what you do in this business. And you really have to be passionate and know what you want, um, as a filmmaker, and not just a filmmaker, an actor, anything in this, entertainment world that's very hard and competitive in every way. So there's definitely going to be more downfalls and failures. But as long as you know that's what you want to do and you stick to it and you stay on the road, it's going to lead somewhere.
Definitely. So, are there any filmmakers that you tend to use like as like a muse or an inspiration as you
Mhm.
continue along your film journey?
Absolutely. I look at history. I'm a big history buff, and I try to learn from a lot of history and present filmmakers. And one of the most pioneering and historical filmmakers that I grew up, um, really watching a lot and was an icon to me was Charlie Chaplin, because he was such an innovator for his time, during that time in the 1915, 20s, 30s. Um, People like him are the ones that shape our industry and technology into allowing us to also do what we do. And any director that's an innovator, like Charlie Chaplin was, in today's eras, you have Steven Spielberg, James Cameron, George Lucas, any of those guys that actually did something that wasn't possible to achieve before they actually, cracked the code. And that's something I try to follow as a
Hmm.
filmmaker. I try to, um, be very ambitious, because you have to be ambitious to be able to achieve something new with your vision. And I always tell myself, have I not done before, or better yet, what can't I do that I will try to achieve, and maybe I will along the way. Because one of the best things about our job is that we're always learning and bettering ourselves and being trained in the subject matter or the style of film we choose to make. Part of our job is to be training and learning and studying that to make a better understanding of us to be able to put it on screen. So in that process, a lot of times you push yourself to the limits to be able to figure out that you can do something that you never thought was ever possible. And I've experienced that enough times now in my career to have that confidence that I know if I'm ambitious enough, and I reach a certain, for a certain height with my goals, I'll at least get somewhere, even if it's not all the way to the top. At least I'll reach somewhere that'll be satisfactory to, the job I'm doing.
Okay. So, how did you go about and come up with the project idea for? Um, I see a project called Sweven here, and I guess I'll ask you about My Foreign Desh. How did you get involved with these projects, and how were they for you?
They were actually very, I would say they were great, because they were my gateway into making more movies professionally. And they were like, my very, very first batch of films that I was making in high school. And, I already told you my very first completed film was at 11 years old. And that was a big practice run to kind of prove to myself that, no, I want to do this, and this is what I can do. And to also, get support from my peers and family at a serious level. And then when I did Swebin, that was the next level up for me at that time, where I was a junior, senior in high school. At that
Okay.
time, I was part of the radio and television program. So we had a lot of access to cameras, editing facilities, and just production services and resources that we had at our classes. So a lot of my friends
May
from
I ask you real quick, what was your first camera that you ever had?
oh, the first camera I've had was like a handy cam. It was like a VHS, one of those big bulky handy cams when we were growing up. And then from
Okay.
there, when I shot the Psychotic Killer 11, I think I used like a little mini DV camcorder it was. And
Okay.
then after that, when I was in high school, we were getting more transitioning into from the mini DVs to HDVs,
Hmm.
even before P2 cards and all that. So, um, and so, when I made those films in high school, I used a lot of those resources I had available, in my classes and with a lot more of my friends. Um, just with the goal that maybe we'll put them in film festivals, or you never know. We
Hmm.
were taking them more and more seriously, so we tried to make. We knew we were making an independent film, and we modeled it after like low budget films like Clerks or whatnot. But it had some action and thriller, and we completed it, and we actually had a screening of Swevin at our school to a few hundred people for charity, and we raised money for medical bills for this one student that had a heart transplant coming up. And then that went around to a few other screenings. But then, I looked at it and I was moving on to film school. And that's when I start taking on my foreign dash, which that was more of an experimental hybrid between a documentary and feature film that I was playing around with as my first film going into college. In my first year in film school, I wanted to make a film at that time on my own dime, my own time, with my own resources, just to see where I was my first, year in college as a freshman, and,
Hmm.
and then where I would end up being by the end of college. So that was just something one day I decided, I'm going to pick up a camera, uh, put some things together, start shooting, and see where it will end up. And I ended up shooting some of it in Los Angeles, and also traveled out to Bangladesh, where I shot another piece of it. It was about this young guy that was in his teenage years now, that grew up knowing he was a foster child with foster parents, and his origin was in Bangladesh, but he never knew who his real parents or family were. So now that he's older, he decides to go back on this journey to at least find some clues to his roots. So that was the premise of it, and so I kind of went with it, and it was a big learning experience, and it played in a few different, good enough festivals to where it got recognition, and I made some more contacts into, um, leading me into getting some more film jobs, and also get some directing jobs as well, to where, I just kept moving on and making bigger and better movies, to where it was opening more doors for me from there on.
Okay. After you finished that project, you went into a couple of TV movies, from what I understand. Road to Las Vegas 1 and 2, and Access. How were those experiences for you? And
Those were, again, more trial and error projects throughout, my journey in the beginning, where those are, again, completed films and projects that actually aired on television and went on to being seen, which was a success, in my book. So, and at the same time, more than anything, I was learning a lot more. And funny enough, a lot of friends and colleagues I met on those shows, that was probably like 12 years ago already now. And I still work with them today, and that was like one of the first times we worked together. And now 12 years, 13, 14 years, actually, even later, we're all still working together and growing together, which is a beautiful thing. And those projects were actually fun. Road to Las Vegas, I remember we shot in a lot of different locations. It was a period of 3 weeks, 3 weeks of just being on location in Vegas. We shot parts of it in LA in the beginning, And what was interesting about Road to Las Vegas and Access were they were by the same producers. So
Okay.
we actually, it was one of the first times in my career, and I think only time where I was doing two productions at the same time. And there were days where, because we had some similar actors, some of the same actors, and some of the similar locations, to where
Hmm.
there were times and days when we were shooting the first half of the day for Road to Las Vegas, and then the second half of the day, say, we shift gears and shoot for Axis. And so that's how, in I think a span of a month, we shot both of those projects together. One, which Axis was a TV movie,
Hmm.
originally it was supposed to be a pilot, but it ended up being a TV movie. And then Road to Las Vegas was going to be a series. It was a 13 episodic series, which it was. It ended up airing in Bangladesh on satellite TV for 13 episodes, and then another version of it was turned into two-part TV movies, which was interesting. And that was a fun project, I gotta say. A lot of characters, locations. It was adventurous, and we had a lot of fun making it too at that time. And I directed it all, and so it was a big learning experience.
Okay. And then after those projects, you got involved with a couple of short films and a documentary. I guess The Last Breath, Top Priority, The Terror Within, and Maria. Why don't you tell me a little bit about those projects?
Some of the short films that I've done throughout my career, they were usually just to kind of just make something during one of our downtimes with friends and family, or to just uh, just help out someone else trying to movie, and instead of us just going for a full feature, we all work together to make a short and create something that we usually would put into film festivals or whatnot, and just be it that way. Or sometimes we would just have an idea and just make a short out of it to give it life, and then maybe one day it could be turned into a feature or a TV series pilot, whatever. The documentary Top Priority, I was involved with for quite some time. It took us about 3-4 years to produce the finished product, and that was a big project, and took up a few years of my life. And it was something that I kind of started rolling with, and I'm someone who believes in finishing what you start. So documentaries are interesting because, especially something based on an ongoing real life situation that's always developing, you have to develop the story along the way, and you can't really end it till you get to the end. So that was one of those interesting. It was kind of a political, social, and situation based on a case of this crazy case. If you look up the documentary, you'll kind of get an idea. But
Hmm.
I was kind of getting pigeonholed after making that documentary as like a up and coming Michael Moore or a documentarian, and I didn't want that because I wanted to make commercial films. And so I kind of decided after that I wanted to just move on to making more like action, horror, comedy, drama movies, instead of just dealing with real life documentaries, which I enjoy. And I like producing documentaries. I've done a few other documentaries that I've produced since, but as far as directing goes, I'm more cherry picking on what I direct.
Okay. Um, from what I can see here, you also directed a film called Smoke Filled Lungs. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that project?
That was a little fun film we did in like 7 days. That was a very fast film. It actually won quite a few awards and festivals. It was more of an offbeat type of a drama film that dealt with a PTSD veteran who's suffering from prescription drugs addiction, and also how that's affecting, you know, people close to him. And now he has to go on a road trip with his nephew. So it becomes a coming of age story where this veteran who's dealing with this disease has to overcome that on this journey with his young nephew that's also coming of age. And it's a nice heartfelt drama. again, it was a smaller film, but something that I'm proud of. I was able to, get that done on a very shoestring and tight schedule, and that led me to a lot of more, doors and opportunities coming my way, and doors opening to let me direct more and more. So I was very happy to be part of that.
Definitely, because after that film, you got into the production of Astro,
Hmm.
which is the film that made me aware of you. So,
Oh, yeah.
so why don't you tell me a little bit about Astro and how you got involved with that project?
Astro is a very close project to me because I came up with the story, and I wrote the script with one of my writing partners at the time, Bernard Selling, and it was just one of those times I was very into sci-fi. I've always been into sci-fi. I've been a sci-fi geek, but it was one of those times where I had made a few films and I wanted to tell a sci-fi alien story, and so um, I came up with this movie, and it took me about a year to really put it together, and then we got into production, and it was production hell. I mean, almost anything and everything you can think of went wrong. It was a big learning experience for me all around on making that movie, and luckily I had a lot of good people around me as well, to be able to get through that and finally finish the film. And that was my biggest thing, and one of my pet peeves that I grew up with in this business was, again, like I said before, finishing what I've started. And that was another thing where I'm like, you know what, I don't care what this becomes or how much of a loss it is or what happens. I know anyone else, I believe, in some of the scenarios we were in, would have just up and left or quit the movie and just said, okay, it's a lost cause, let's walk away from it. But with the support of some people around me, I was able to have the courage to be able to at least finish and deliver for it to have some life. And so we did that. We finished the movie and finally got a release and distribution, and it was something that I was able to move on from and direct more films. Where one of the biggest lessons I've learned from that experience was also not to dwell on one project, because it took some time. It took a lot longer than I wanted to finish that movie because of some unfortunate events that had happened, and it held me up for quite some time with that movie just to kind of finish it and move on from it. And as soon as I was able to let it go and move on from it, clear my head and move on to other opportunities, more and more doors kept opening, and projects ended up becoming, faster and easier for me to complete and deliver. So I think that experience actually made me stronger and better as a filmmaker. And since then, every project I do, I embrace the experience and even the hardships that help me become stronger at the end of it.
Here's a little bit tougher question. How, if there was a favorite scene from some of the projects that we've already talked about, um, what would some of those be?
Oh man, that is a tough question. Um, I would say probably in when I did my foreign dash, there was a time when I was in Bangladesh shooting that on location, and part of that, like I was saying, was kind of a hybrid between a documentary and a feature film. And so one of the scenes I shot, and it's actually in the trailer too. You can see my character, because I also act in it, walking on this bridge with this little kid, and that was a real life slum location that we came across. That we were just driving around and finding locations and interesting places that matched my uh, vision that I put together for it. And we just came across that little slum, on the side of town, and went there and met with the people. And that little kid was a real kid that was giving me a tour through that little slum village. And the things we were able to capture there visually were amazing. And to be there and to watch that back every time, it gives me the chills. Like, I get brought back to that moment and place. And it was a surreal experience, not to just be there, but to be able to put it on film and capture that. And that's real life, but it was through being told through a story, which is very interesting even for me to look back at even now, as an audience even now. So I think that was really cool. Oh, I'm sorry. I think you might have went on mute or something. I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. In the film Astro, you direct alongside and work with your future wife. How was that? Um, how was that in relation to working as a director with someone that you were close with?
It's actually, easier because, when it's your significant other or your wife, they understand you very well. So we already have an understanding and, chemistry going into it where, she's closer to me than anyone else. So she understands my vision. And so she's also very supportive. So it makes the job definitely easier. A lot of times I know they say couples can't really work together or whatnot,
Yeah.
but at least, my wife, she understands the business, and she's also been an actress and working with other people. And she just knows how it is. And she also knows the whole process of creating something, and from conception to completion in a production. She knows the different phases and what it takes. And also she's trained as an actress professionally, so she's able to balance both sides of it, knowing what's to expect in front of the camera and behind the camera, to understand better of what I do. So she tries to support me, in all ways, and it helps. I mean, doing what I do and so many others as filmmakers, it's not easy, and
No.
if you have the support of your significant other, it just makes it that much easier. And that's why, you see so many horror stories between couples in this business. But I've been blessed to be able to have someone that understands it.
Definitely. So after Astro, you got involved with a couple of projects called the Paradise Apartments and Los Angeles, which one was a TV movie and one was a documentary. Why don't you tell me a little bit about these projects?
So, Paradise Apartments, it was actually a TV pilot, that
Okay.
I was hired to direct and produce. And at the time, I made the pilot, and I think they made a couple more episodes, and it was being shopped to different networks. And I'm not really sure, what came about it. Sometimes, with the TV pilots and
Hmm.
movies, it takes a lot longer than films. Films we turn around within a year and it's out. Sometimes it takes years with TV stuff. Los Angeles was an ongoing, it's still an ongoing documentary that I helped put together a few years back. And it's still something that's being shot. It's just kind of like the developing crisis within the society and environment of Los Angeles, how it's, from dreamland to almost wasteland type of a scenario. And, it's kind of showing a real life picture of what, Los Angeles is becoming. But that's more of an ongoing, project. Again, I have a lot of side projects that are developing or in production in some stage or another with other directors that I've been, part of supporting. So it's been a process with some of these other side projects for a few years now.
Okay. After that, um, I I guess I only want to touch on this one briefly because I know you don't really want to be associated with this one. But may I ask you about morbid stories and what the
Oh,
story about
yeah.
that is?
Morbid Stories is something that, we just kind of did for fun. And it was a few different short films kind of put together in an anthology. I mean, it wasn't something we really took seriously. When we were making it, it was like a 1 day shoot of just everyone kind of, doing like a 48-hour film type thing. But it ended up getting a shorter distribution because it was like a horror anthology and had a decent run with Amazon Prime and stuff like that. But other than that, like it's not a film I would like highlight like, oh, this is one of the films I
Definitely. After that project, then you got involved with Ace and the Christmas Miracle. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that project?
So Ace was a film that was brought to me by Phil Herman and Stephen Chase as a different film and story altogether. It was actually a kind of like a Ed talking horse, Mr. Ed type of a movie with adult humor and just two guys with the horse, and I had an opportunity to pitch to a studio some ideas, and one of them was just in the pitch room I just came up with a talking horse kids Christmas movie, and then
Okay.
all of a sudden I started thinking, wait a minute, there's an idea that was brought to me about a talking horse. So then I went back to Stephen Chase and one of our other writers, Robin DeMartini. We got together and said, hey guys, why don't we take that idea and story and turn it into a kids talking horse Christmas movie? So then we went with that, and then we rewrote the entire script pretty much from scratch into a kids holiday talking horse movie, and we got it together very fast within a couple of weeks, and we got a cast. We kind of had an idea of the crew and cast we were going to use, so everyone came on board, and then it happened during the pandemic where we ended up shooting 8 days very fast, and we ended up getting distribution, and it was released by Lionsgate just this past November, on November 16th during the holidays. So
Very cool.
a fun little movie. It was fun making it, and if you watch it, it's a family friendly movie, and it was just all around nice, charming film.
Are there any actors and actresses that you've worked with as a director that you would like to mention of all the different projects that we've talked about so far?
Um, no, I mean, it's there's so many. It's like also trying to pinpoint, like your favorite moments, and at this point, there's so many. I wouldn't want to like just pinpoint one, but one of the other highlighted moments I had was with one of my recent released films, The Commando, working with Mickey Rourke, and Michael J. White. And Mickey Rourke is such a legendary, old school actor. There's so many like stories that he had from his days that were precious, and memorable when he was sharing them in between takes, and he's still one of the few left of the old school actor studio trained styled actors, and so it was a pleasure working with him.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Commando and what it's all about?
So yeah, the Commando released recently. I directed it. I was one of the writers of the story and producer on it. And that was a film. We again, it was a record shooting time, short schedule. Since we filmed during the pandemic, we had to adapt to new working formulas of making movies. And one of them, those were cutting down the shooting days. And we shot this film in 11 days. And it was shot in October 2021. I'm sorry, October 2020, and just released January 7th in theaters in the U.S. and then VOD digital. It's still playing in VOD digital now, and it's about a DEA agent played by Michael J. White who comes back home from a botched mission, and also having PTSD from that failed mission where three innocent women get killed, and so he feels responsible. So he comes back with PTSD, and we focused on how that affects him and the people around him and his family and friends, and not only that, and how he deals with finding help and talking to his wife about it and talking to a therapist, talking to his friend, and accepting that he has a problem and he needs help, and he tries to find a solution. In the middle of all that, you have this ex-convict played by Mickey Rourke, Johnny, who gets out of prison, and he comes back and joins his gang and his brothers to now retrieve $3 million that he had stashed in that very same home that Michael Jai White and his family live in now, years later. And that's when the battle begins. Clash happens. Uh, the daughters, Michael Jai White's two daughters, are left home alone one weekend as they go off on a trip to kind of get away and deal with the PTSD issue. And in that time, when the daughters are left home alone, these home invaders come in, the thugs come in, and they create chaos. And then obviously, what happens next. Michael Jai White comes back to save his family, and all hell breaks loose.
So, is there a favorite shot that you can take from from finishing the film that you could take away from it?
Final shot, you mean like from the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, final shot. Yeah, I mean, there's so many
Oh,
over there where I knew like there were some good moments.
okay.
It's hard for me to pick up fresh and new. It's something that needs to like I don't really think about those things when I make my movies.
Not a problem.
Yeah, so it's tough for me to say that right now.
Okay. And I guess you are doing a few more projects, if I may ask about them. I guess you're beginning production on The Curse of the Clown Motel, I guess,
That's something.
correct?
Yeah, we shot actually a year ago. And it's still in post, coming out. I'm not sure where it's coming out yet. It's a little too early, but those are things I'm more hired to make, and I kind of do my job, make the movie, and then move on to the next, and then kind of let it take its natural course. And then there are some other movies that I have more of a hands-on, um, I guess. Access to along the way throughout the whole process. One of the other movies I just wrapped recently, Mojave Diamonds, that I wrote, directed, and produced. We just shot it here in Las Vegas about 3 weeks ago, and it's deep into editing now. So we're in post production. I'm very excited about that one. It's a full on action film. And then I
Okay.
always have some productions happening. I'm producing, directing, and helping and consulting on some other projects that are very exciting coming up this year. So it's just been a busy time with productions in every phase, which I'm very blessed with.
Okay. And I guess uh, you've got a couple more in pre-production here. Mr. Nine, Fighter, and Father of the Nation, I guess.
Yeah,
Uh,
M9, and yeah, those are happening very soon. I can't say too much about them yet, but
Not a problem.
I can let you know they're in development, and the work hasn't stopped on those. They're just projects kind of coming into fruition on their time.
Well, what is the name of your production company? At least the one that you go under.
I work independently for many different production companies and studios and distributors, but my company is Veil Films, and we do a lot of productions independently, and we help others as well to get their films produced and also find distribution. So it's like a one-stop shop that we also do a lot of co-productions and collaborations with other productions. So I've been doing this long enough to build enough networking to be able to have a team of people that kind of help each other out, which is a beautiful thing. That's what I love about this business.
Definitely. Well, I thank you for the time that you were able to come on and chat with me about your film life so far, and what are some of the films that you'd like to achieve in the future
Um,
beyond this? Is there any direction that you would like to go from here?
sure, yeah, I'd like to do some more epic historical films, time period historical epic, action films, and just real life stories. I'm working on some, and also some TV shows and limited series. that really nice, because you can actually nowadays tell them in cinematic styles, but go more in depth with the characters and the stories. So I've always liked those. So I'm hoping pretty soon, I'll get more into those.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to tell the audience? Maybe.
No, I just would like to say keep on supporting films, and watching and being the audience that you are, to help support what we do.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully, yes. I know your film with Mickey Rourke. Definitely, people need to go see it. So, thank you, and hopefully, you just check out anything that this young director has in store for you, and hopefully you've enjoyed coming on the show.
Thank you for having me again, and take
Appreciate.
care, and best of luck to you.
Definitely, man. And then like, share, and subscribe, and hope to see y'all Tuesday as we go on about some exciting films on this channel. So thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye bye.